Okay, so we're going to talk about Neptune. Neptune is sometimes confusing, sometimes brings in misunderstandings. It dissolves structures in your life, and it can create problems for you where it can make you believe that something is a certain way when really it's not. The truth can be hidden sometimes where we don't see clearly. It muddies the waters on us a little bit. And we need to go into why Neptune is so difficult to deal with, why the ruler of dreams and of visions, the planet that helps us merge soul to soul and breaks down those barriers. Why is this so confusing? So I'm going to need to share my screen with you and we're going to get into it. Okay, so first of all, let's just discuss the fact that this person, like many other people born in when Neptune was in Scorpio, which is quite a while, have the same sort of generational unconscious values. So Neptune here in Scorpio, for Neptune, our artificial creation here, born on July 26th, 1963 at 4:46 p.m. in New York. Neptune has Neptune in their 11th house of larger social circles, of groups, teamwork, friendship, goals, wishes. And also they have Neptune in the sign of Scorpio, which the sign colors their unconscious values. So what are our unconscious values sort of coming from? Well, Neptune gives us a dream, a vision. And when it's in a sign, it's sort of giving everybody who was born within that sign the same sort of dream. For this person, born at this exact time, to have Neptune in the 11th house, it becomes very much more personal. They really do value the subgroups with which they identify. It does not mean that they want to be a part of every group or that they won't like their alone time with all their nice Virgo or that they won't enjoy one-on-one encounters with their moon in Libra. But what it means is that with their Neptune in the sign of Scorpio, what's happening is they have a desire for the money, for security, for comfort. So there's an unconscious value. The value, the dream becomes, how do I be comfortable? And with Scorpio, it's not the same kind of Taurian comfort that comes from material values, right? For Scorpio, Scorpio seeks to accumulate things so that they can be comfortable. They can use those things on a psychic level. Scorpio is a sign of soulmate level connections and partnerships. So you've got a large generational influence where Neptune wants to achieve Scorpio's ultimate value of soulmate level connection. Maybe that's why we just have so many people from that generation, getting married to three different people because we're looking for the ideal soulmate. And you can have likely many different soulmate level connections, which I would define as like astrologically as having planets within 1 degree of each other in aspect, which would likely denote some sort of connection in relation to those types of energies and a bond in relation to those souls through that modality. So we have a desire for the soulmate level connection, but really what we're looking for is, and all these people are looking for is, how do I become psychically comfortable? And they think that the way to do that, because on average, the large majority is not going to be have a very good understanding of these unconscious influences. So on average, let's say 80% of people, exist in that base state where they're mostly going to fall victim to Neptune's more confusing and misunderstanding vibrations. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is Neptune wants to get rid of and dissolve all of the things that are keeping this person from overcoming self-limitation by entering into emergence with a partner or a higher power. Partner slash higher power slash power symbol. And this right here is so important because this is how the sign Scorpio overcomes the self-limitation. They find an energy rather in a soul. And by empowering that other soul, they get a reciprocal response from that soul, which allows them to overcome the self-limitation. It makes things a lot less hard. But most people don't understand that. And so Neptune tries to dissolve their comfort levels, meaning as soon as they get a job and then they make more money, let's say that's, there's the job, there's the money, and then they buy a house and then their expenses go up and then they have to get promoted to make more money. And, so the comfort levels are constantly dissolving, where it's like we reach one stage and Neptune dissolves the thing. It may dissolve the job. It may dissolve the money by taking it through the payment of bills or eating it up in the mortgage. And so you don't really become comfortable because you're trying to do all this yourself, or you're trying to do it with a partner, but you're not understanding that the whole shared value with the partner isn't based on the material comforts of Taurus. So I'm kind of getting very deep, not very deep, but I'm getting deeper into the more generational influence of Neptune and Scorpio, which I've talked about before. But this is just to paint you a picture that this is, on an unconscious level, what we're dealing with now. So what you can see is Neptune's whole goal is to get you your vision. This is not an enemy force. And this is what people misunderstand about these transcendental planets, right? And those would be Uranus, Neptune, and where are you? Jeez. I'm gonna move this. Okay. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So those would be the three transcendental planets. Now, we're not going to talk about all three today. We're just going to talk about Neptune because we're having some fun. And part of the fun here is that Neptune wants you to get your dream. It rules dreams. It wants you to get your dream. So as Neptune transits these houses, it wants to dissolve all the Saturnian structures. So you set up these Saturnian structures, meaning Saturn is the builder of forms, the builder of structures, the solidifying, consolidating agent in the horoscope. So Saturn, by transit, is always seeking to consolidate all the hard work you've done into a sort of strong and sturdy foundational position that's going to last and last and last the ages, right? Problem is, okay, so when we go to the transits, July 18th, Neptune's got Neptune in the third house, in the intercepted sign of Pisces. So we're doing some work in this intercepted sign. And the work here is that Neptune's come into the third house to dissolve things that are getting in the way of the ideal vision, or you could call it a dream, right? And on a outer level, Neptune's changing and dissolving old ways of communicating that are against the optimal way for you. So let's say Mercury would be the natural rule of the third house, and your Mercury's in, well, Neptune's Mercury's in Leo, and so Mercury in Leo likes to keep things lighthearted, fun, be the center of attention, make other people laugh and smile, which is on path for Mercury in Leo. But let's say by doing that, they were always using their head and not their heart, which is a common Leonian problem. Well, Neptune enters into the third house of communication and of dealing with others and of exchanging information, receiving and also giving information. Once we get there, now Neptune wants to dissolve the old way of doing business, which was you were playing roles for people that weren't reciprocating and you were using jokes and laughter to make them smile, but it was at your own expense. And so now you have to communicate much more from the heart, meaning you have to let people know objectively that they weren't good for you, or you have to start to rethink those types of connections and how you communicate it because your heart got left behind. It's like you weren't happy. Your gut, you weren't getting a reciprocated ideal from the people in your life. Okay. So Neptune now dissolves that, but you're not ready for that. You weren't ready to face the conflict or the potential the potential conflict that could come from making people aware of the fact that they didn't reciprocate all the giving that you've been doing as a Mercury and Sun and Leo. And so people don't have that awareness now, and you're not willing to give it to them. And so Neptune keeps trying to dissolve that, meaning you try to, you go to communicate from the head, a situation arises to force you to communicate from the heart. It dissolves the old way of communicating. And then it's forcing you to speak your truth, and then you're hesitant to do so, and so you miss the opportunity because that's a typical Leonian thing. And then we end up in a state we don't want to be in, which is that now we're confused. Why is my old method, not working? Well, the old method that you set up was based on using your head and not your heart. And so the third house, which obviously isn't ruled by that. The third house here is ruled by Uranus and Virgo, Virgo is still ruled by Mercury, and that house is co-ruled by Mercury because Virgo's intercepted, which is getting off path. So now we can still say that with Aquarius on the house cusp, that would influence things. But, I don't want to take this 10,000 layers deep to the point where we miss the point of Neptune. So we're just going to keep it on Neptune in the third house for now. And the third house is of really your familiar environments, your day-to-day sort of exchanges, the things that are familiar to you on a day-to-day basis, like siblings, friends, family, where you frequent, how far you travel on a day-to-day basis, those types of things are going to be in your third house. Now, concepts in things, you may have different ways of taking in and learning concepts. You may get insights now and information on a psychic level. And if you're not ready for that, so it's dissolving the pathway of the mental blockages you have for the psychic information or the intuitive information you're downloading, which you will need to accomplish your dream, which is to X, Y, and Z, right? As we use the dream over here in Neptune example, it might be to create that soulmate level connection and overcome the self-limitation. Or it might be to, with your North Node over there in Cancer, it might be to set up a home that's yours, to set up an environment that you can control because you didn't really have that growing up and you kind of felt like a stranger. Now you want to reestablish that. And that's a huge part of your dream. And, and you also want to be the center of attention in society. So like all these things are going to factor in. We're not just looking at one planet. So the point is people get really upset because they're like, why am I confused? Well, why you're confused is the Saturnian structures you set up for 30 plus years are in this area of your life is now being dissolved so that you can merge with your vision, with your dream. And when Neptune goes through that house of your area, it's not to block you. The blockage comes from your resistance to the dissolution of the structure that was put in place. The blockage comes from your resistance to the dissolution of the structure that was prohibiting you from reaching your dream. Saturn structures are good, but that's why we have these outer planets to, I like to use the word refresh. I've been using that, refresh. It's like a refreshment of the waters. It comes in and it cleans out and it keeps things from getting turbid and nasty and disgusting. And now what we need to do is we need to leverage Neptune. Neptune doesn't act the same way as Uranus or Pluto, and we'll get into those modalities in different videos. Neptune is a dissolutionary force. It doesn't break it up drastically. It doesn't change things from one thing to another. It simply dissolves the barrier, and creates emergence. And this can create real issues at times when you have no structure and you've dissolved your entire ego because you've gone full Neptunian. And now we have a problem where you're the victim who needs to be saved, or you're the savior who needs a victim all the time to save, because you've abandoned your whole ego and you're taking too much responsibility for everybody else. There's too much compassion. You're not getting back in touch with the real heart of Neptune. Neptune rules Pisces. The real heart of Neptune here is, what is your private dream? Your private dream. Neptune rules your private dream, your private vision, the vision of your soul. And that's what we're dissolving structures to get at. And as Neptune transits, it's now dissolving things in each area. And if you don't do the work in those areas, if you don't allow for the dissolution of things that were blocking you from the connection with your dream on that level of your being, then the waters get stagnant and gross, and the blockage is not Neptune, which is trying to send in good energy, but the blockage actually becomes your resistance to the energy of Neptune. And that's where we run into some problems. So now that we know this, when you work with me or you work with your astrologer, you can look at Neptune in this way. You can look at Neptune and say, this is more the heart of what we're getting at. It's not just confusing. It's not there to just, bust your beans and ruin your communication with others in the third house, or to obstruct the flow of information or make the information that you're getting a confusing mess to you. It's there to get rid of the things that were prohibiting you from seeing it in the light that would allow you to get what you wanted. And that can be painful when you fight that way. When you wall yourself off against it, you stay stuck in your little safe place, your safe harbor, and you miss out on all the beautiful energy that Neptune is trying to send in. It's you who's created the dam, and it's the dam that's going to implode on you again and again and again, and that's why it doesn't feel good. That's why you're upset. That's why you're confused. That's why you're disillusioned. That's why you're, falling for the illusions and then getting disillusioned again and again and again, only to go back to the old way of doing things because you didn't realize that was doing. And the people who are more open get more benefit, and the people who are less open obviously have more problems, and they don't know why. And eventually all this accumulates. Like, this accumulates at the floodgates of your dam. I'm trying to get through for years and years and years and years. Okay, too bad. I've moved on, trying to get through for years and years and years and years. And eventually you get flooded. And eventually you go back to putting up the same nonsense. You're making Neptune's job harder. These are not forces that are against you. They're forces that are for you. And that is what we're going to focus on. So I hope you now understand a little bit more about Neptune and why it's not such an inimical force. It's not the enemy we thought it was, right? And we need to learn to use it and leverage it in a positive way, in a virtuous way, even better word, virtuous, right? The action that gets us the value. What are the virtues of Neptune? And then, as I've outlined, that's how we need to begin to leverage Neptune, and that's how we can win in the long term. And especially the mid to long term, where a lot of people are getting losses there because they're staying walled up for the temporary comfort of the moment. So if you like this, like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know you're enjoying it, and I'll keep teaching some of